Hi everybody, welcome to the Self-Sufficient Homestead. My name is Tanya Milan and today we're going to make the most delicious spinach muffins. You know, sometimes you want to get some vegetables into your kids and they just don't want to eat it. But this will make them eat it, I promise. So, interestingly enough, I've got a lot of recipe books, but the recipes that I use most are the ones that I actually write in the books. These ones here never get used, so I don't know why I just don't start my own little recipe book, which I can pass on to all my children. I think that's actually a great idea. So if you're looking for a gift for your child for the next birthday, maybe think of something like that. But okay, so let's make muffins, but first we need some spinach, and I'm going to put in some spring onions and some herbs, so we need to go fetch that from the garden. So let's go do that first before we start baking. So my spinach is not in the best state at the moment. I haven't been in the garden for a long time after my operation, and only recently I'm working in it again. So you can see there's a lot of weeds and stuff around, but we will use it. I'm wondering what this white is on my spinach. This is interesting. So spring onions and multiplying onions is something that I have a lot of all the time. And if you want to know how to never buy onions again, let me know in the comments and I'll send you the link to the video that I made last week. So one more thing that we need, despite the spring onions and the little bit of spinach that we did get, is some herbs. So we have to go check in my very neglected garden where we can find some herbs. While we're here, I'm just checking up on my little patty pan. I've been hiding it from the monkeys. The moment they see something of color, they come take it. So this one's looking good. I'll be harvesting this one soon. It's amazing how fast the spinach is wilting from the heat. We've had 5 days of good rain for the first time in years, and now it's a very humid, warm outside, and these spinach leaves are really feeling it. It's important to get any sand off because the previous batch I made, and eggs, look at that. The previous batch I did, I didn't wash it so well, so the muffins was a bit crunchy. I don't think anybody appreciated that. The spring onions, I'm just going to chop some of it up, and because I didn't wash it so well at the point here, I'm just going to take a lot off. So with the spring onions, I'm just going to chop the white parts off. And these middle parts, because I haven't cleaned them properly, I'm going to take them out. Because a lot of sand can get stuck there. I can clean it out later for something else. Because I'm going to use the greens too. And I want to make sure there's no sand stuck in between these tops as well. I'm just going to roughly chop these. They give a delicious flavor to these spinach muffins. If you don't have spring onions, you can use multiplying onions, shallots. They both will work. If you have kids that don't like onions much, then you'd either chop this up much finer or you would leave it out. Next up, I'm going to take the spinach and I'm going to cut the stalks, the white stalks out. So I'm just left with the green part. Now this is interesting about the spinach. I'm not going to put it in raw. Previously in my life, years ago, I would never have wanted to cook spinach because I want to retain as much of the nutrients as possible. However, as life went on and I was studying more about nutrition and organic vegetables, etc., I found that raw spinach has got a lot of anti-nutrients in it. Now, anti-nutrients are compounds in your vegetable that binds to things like magnesium and calcium in your vegetable, and then it's not absorbable to you when you eat it. So you want to get rid of some of these anti-nutrients so you can actually make use of the nutrition inside this vegetable as best possible. And the way to do it with spinach is to simmer it in a little bit of water for about 5 minutes, and then that water you throw away, and the pulp that you're left with is what you use when you are cooking your food. That way you get the best out of your spinach that's possible. So I'll be cutting it up before I put it in the pot. You can do it after as well, but then you have to wait till it's cooled down completely, otherwise you will be burning your hands. So for this recipe, you need 300 grams of cooked spinach. Now, I never measure this. I just put in how much ever I think. And you can also vary it, because if you are doing it for kids that are full of nonsense, then you can start with just a little bit of spinach so they get used to the spinach being inside the muffin. I guarantee you cannot taste the spinach in the muffin. It's overpowered by the herbs and the cheese, so they won't even taste it. Now the only herbs I could find is parsley, and I'm going to add that. I would have to really look into planting some herbs again. Our next step is to get our onions, our spinach and our herbs into a pot here, and just add a little bit of water. Literally so it can have a light steam when you simmer it. So while we're waiting for the spinach to steam, I'm just going to grate all the cheese. We need 3 cups of cheese, and the best cheese to use for this is cheddar cheese because it has a stronger flavor than Gouda or mozzarella. I've got some mozzarella on standby because I've only got this amount of cheddar. So if it's not enough, I will add mozzarella, but the ideal is definitely to use cheddar cheese. Now this looks like 3 cups and a bit. One can never have enough cheese, so I'm just going to add all of that to my bowl. So to our cheese, we're going to add some eggs. You need 6 eggs for this recipe. Now, because I'm using farm eggs, I'm going to test the eggs to see if they're still okay, because we get such a lot of eggs. How you can see, for those who don't know, if you pour water onto your eggs, if they float, they are definitely rotten. If they lay flat, then they are pretty fresh. If they stand up like this, Then there are semi-fresh, probably about 2-week-old egg. Luckily it's not floating, so I'll use it even if it stands up like this. Still, that's fine, but if it floats, I will not use it. And if you're scared, you can add 1 by 1 egg into a cup and just check if it's okay. But this method is very reliable. So 6 eggs in there. With your cheese. Did you see the one that I just threw in? That was the one that stood up. You can see it's an older egg, the yolk broke. So that makes 100% sense because it's like 2 weeks old already. The other eggs which didn't float or stood up, yolks are still intact. Now to our cheese and our eggs, we're going to add some butter. The recipe actually calls for margarine, but I prefer butter in any type of treats that I make, and I see these muffins as an absolute treat. The kids love them. 300 grams of pure butter. Now this is farm butter made here on the farm from our own cow's milk. We also need a cup of milk and a cup of water. Salt, we need 1 tablespoon of salt. That's 15 milliliters of salt. Now the salt I'm using here is Kalahari salt. I normally would use Himalayan, but I decided to try out this salt. Apparently it's really cool. Now, you can add any herbs now to this. 2 teaspoons of it, dried herbs. The ones I've got some dried thyme from the garden, so I'm going to put some of that in. Not too much, it doesn't need to be overpowering. And so 2 teaspoons of any kind of dried herb that you want, and you can add fresh ones as well. I'm going to add some cayenne pepper, also like a dash, it just gives it a beautiful flavor. Some black pepper, you can add about half a teaspoon of black pepper. And then I have some smoked paprika, also about a half a teaspoon of smoked paprika. Just gives it a depth of flavor that you wouldn't have had otherwise. So before adding anything else, I'm just going to stir this up a bit. There's no flour or baking powder in here yet. I'm going to break those eggs and just give it a good stir. The reason why I'm stirring it now, because once you have your baking powder in, you must be careful not to over mix it, because any baking powder product that's over mixed gets it all doughy, not nice at all. So I try and mix up the butter and the eggs before the time, just a little bit, so that's all mixed through. Before we add the rest, let's go check that spinach. So the spinach is nice and wilted. We don't want it overcooked, we just want it wilted. And you see the water over there? It is green in color. So a lot of your anti-nutrients have leached into this water, and this is what we will throw away. We do not want to take that in. Otherwise it just robs our body of nutrients and minerals that we need. I've poured off most of the water of the spinach. Just going to press some more of it out. Now the recipe calls for 3 cups of cooked spinach. The amount of spinach in here is probably a tiny bit less, but as I said, you can adapt that. You do not have to have 3 cups of spinach. Depending on what your family likes, you can add or subtract from it to make it to your liking. I'm just pushing it around a bit so we can just cool it down slightly. And while we do that, I'm going to add the flour. So long. 6 cups of flour goes in, and I'm just spreading the flour over the top, because when I put my baking powder in, I want to spread it as well. so I don't have to stir so much. To this I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of baking powder. If I threw the baking powder all on one place, then I would really have to mix hard to get everything mixed. So this is a good trick to follow. And before I even mix it with the liquid, I just mix it with the flour on the top as well, just to help it blend with the flour. You can actually sift the baking powder and the flour together, but I just like to follow easy roads and quick ways of doing things. I don't like to take a lot of time. Right. So I'm just going to give it a slight stir before I add my spinach. Okay. The reason why I didn't want to put the hot spinach into my mixture before was it will cook the egg instantly, and then you've got scrambled eggs inside your muffin, which you don't want. So now it's slightly cooled, and I can just mix this through with everything now. Obviously you want all the flour incorporated, but with the least possible stirring needed. So I go around and put my spoon through a bit, and the moment that you see that the flour is incorporated, you stop. See, there's still some over there, so I'm just going to take that through. Okay, and that's it. This is done. Do not stir any further. Now I've got another variation of this muffin where you can use it in the festive holidays, where you can add some dried beetroot to it, and it will actually have, when you cut it open, it will have these red and green spots that looks a bit like Christmas. So I've got my muffin pans. They're not the newest ones, they're pretty old now, but they work really well. And I'm just taking some melted butter and just brushing it into these pans. Now, you can use spray and cook as well. I prefer not to if I don't have to, because spray and cook is expensive. I don't know what you call it in other parts of the world. South Africa, it's spray and cook. It's basically an oil in a pressurized spray can that you buy off the shelves. I just don't like paying for stuff if I don't have to. So this butter and this little silicone brush is sufficient for me. Just make sure when you butter your trays that you go on the sides as well. Otherwise your sides will get stuck. Now this recipe would actually make 36 savory muffins, but I don't have enough muffin trays, so I only make 30, and then I overfill them a bit, so you can really save on that. However, I have another neat trick that I do with these muffins if they are higher and bigger, and I'll show you that just now in a moment. I'm going to fill these up. And as I said, I fill them up a bit much. You can just stop when it is halfway if you want, and it will rise to the top. I'm adding more out of necessity. Look at the lovely intense color on these muffins. I mean, the eggs are all free range and the dough is beautiful and yellow. I know the cheese also plays a role. There is a distinction between the dough and the cheese. These muffins are really great if you want to make some treats for the kids' lunch boxes, or maybe for hubby when he's going to work. And they are really delicious. because I use butter, it just has that superior flavor, and it makes the outside so nice and crunchy, and the inside is just delicious and soft. So you saw just now in my garden that there's not much going on, but I'm really working hard at getting it up and running again. But one thing that I'm lacking in that garden is definitely some herbs. So it's late in the season, it's already after Christmas, and I don't know if I have enough time to plant from seeds. However, I think I should go to the nursery and just get some strong rosemary, thyme plants and just get them into the garden. So now everything is full, but I've got some more batter left. There's a lot. So what I'm going to do now is give it even more, and I'll show you just now why. If you start adding, add to either all of them evenly, or take one tray and make it a lot more, because then you can leave that specific tray in to bake a bit longer, and you can take the others out. And then the kids can eat these ones immediately, and the big ones you can save. I'm gonna show you now. All right, ready for the oven. The oven I have already warmed up to 180 degrees Celsius. I think that's 375 Fahrenheit. And this goes in for approximately 25 seconds. Now you'll know it's ready when it's got a lovely golden crust on it. So 25 minutes plus minus. This one will go longer than these two, so judge it by eye as well. Muffins are in the oven. Now I'm going to show you my other idea with these little muffins, and it's really tasty and delicious. Now this was the only one I could save because the kids took them all. So one I just hid. It's not a very big one. I would use the higher ones for it typically. But once you've got your muffin here and it's stood in the fridge for one day, then it's firmed up a bit. Because on day one it's really soft on the inside. But in the fridge it firms up. The cheese also helps with that. So I'm taking my muffin and I'm just going to cut thin slices with it. And I can go as far as my top will allow me. The top is a bit uneven. So there we go. Look at that. I've got some beautiful circles. And what I do with these is, there's two things you can do. You can either pop them into those sandwich toasters that's got a top and a bottom and you close. And you can toast it on a slow setting so it slowly toasts right through and goes all crisp. Or you can put it in an oven like you would dry like biscotti or rusks. Put it in the oven and let it dry, and it turns into the most delicious little cracker. So when I want really nice, neat little circle crackers, this is what I do. It's so much easier than making a dough, rolling it out, taking a cookie cutter, cutting all of them, and then you've got the excess in between that you have to roll out again and cut it again. There's just no waste in this one. So you dry it out, and then if you need to serve something on a platter or something, you can use these that are all dried out and add some cheese on top. And they're even delicious if you add something sweet like apricot jam. It's delicious because then you've got a salty and a sweet together, savory and sweet, and it just is so versatile. So guys, little round crackers. Look, nice crispy little crackers from the toaster. Right, let's go get the rest. Look at these. Beautiful and golden on the outside, nice and crispy. Oh, this one just comes out. So So you can twist and turn. If it's slightly stuck, just run a knife around the edges and it comes loose very easily if you've buttered your pan properly, which it seems I did. So let's have a closer look. You can hear nice and crispy, but if I open it up, a beautiful crumb inside. So good. Thank you so much for spending time in my kitchen. If you enjoyed this recipe and this video, please give me a like and subscribe if you want to see some more. I'll see you guys next time.